This is from Hampton Boyce. Hi, Jesse. Why the prosecution didn't ask Cassie about the hotel tape, which she did call the security to turn over the tape to KK or Diddy. She wanted it trash out. I mean, there was testimony, earlier today where apparently Cassie was on the phone and basically said she wanted the tape too. And so I think this goes to the idea that it wasn't Combs, trying to cover up evidence of his crimes, but maybe it was trying to protect him and Cassie together, right? So I guess that I don't recall what the level she was asked about this on the stand. But again, the question is, did the prosecution not ask her enough about this hotel tape?
No, I think we can also, the fact that this would be very damaging to her. It makes sense that she wouldn't want that tape out there. But also, I think if we can go back to the testimony of the psychologist, we know that Cassie was under his thumb and she was under his psychological control. She was definitely a battered woman. So she may have even been threatened or may have even been politely asked by Combs, hey, call this individual and say, you don't want this video out. Combs may have thought that she, as a young woman, may appeal to him even more, and beg that, hey, please don't put this video out. It's going to be damaging to me, and not even worry. Don't even worry about Sean, but it's going to be harmful to me, my future, my career, my reputation. My family is going to see this. So I don't know why they didn't ask her about it, but it makes sense to me that she would call her, that he would get her to call and say, hey, do this deal. Don't put this video out or destroy the video.
So, Candace, we got a question coming in about alleged victim number 3, who I believe is referred to as Gina. There's been this whole conversation about whether or not she's going to testify or not. There was a back and forth a couple weeks ago where the defense said she's basically not a part of the case anymore. The prosecution kind of objected to that. But Enlin DK says, why not bring Gina, or at least her testimony in, make her plead the fifth and give immunity too? Wouldn't it prove she's scared or paid? If she doesn't, get the victim part, and then it kind of gets cut off. But I guess there's a lot of different points to that. I'll allow you to jump into how you want to discuss Gina or alleged victim number 3.
Sure. Well, Jesse, that's a very good question that everybody's asking. Where is she? Where is her attorney that's also been on the table that nobody has been able to contact her? What I thought was very interesting was that the defense said, hey, listen, she's definitely not coming. It brought up the question, how do you know? I mean, I don't know what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on in terms of why she's not presenting herself, because she does have options. She has options to come there and plead the fifth. She has options to come there and get immunity. She has so many options, but where is she? That is the question that nobody can answer 100%. We can only kind of project or kind of guess what she is. I don't know if there was some other deal that was going on, but I thought it was very interesting that the defense was 100% sure that she is not coming.
Got another question from Shop Girl. Hi, Shop Girl. This is for you, Rich. Jesse, in trying to understand these charges, is the paying offs of security guards with Christina Corum and guards present racketeering?
No, not by itself. It's a predicate act. It's bribery. It is a predicate act that is part of, again, RICO is a pattern of racketeering activity. You need to show multiple illegal acts. Candace was talking before about how they have to be on that list, but you can mix and match. You can show bribery plus arson, for example. In theory, you only need a couple, but also you have to prove that it's a pattern. So a couple may not suffice.
Interesting. Okay, we got more questions coming in. Keep them coming as we wait for this testimony to continue. Afi, Alexander Mateo asks, how do you follow the money and get it to stick if the bribes were paid in cash?
So the bribes may be paid in cash, but that's what I was talking about. I want to see the withdrawals. And, who is the COO? Who is their accountant? Figure out how they keep track of their money. How do they keep track of their records? Something we do know is Puffy was very on top of his money. And he was also, some people have reported, a little bit stingy. So that leads me to believe that he is very aware of tracking and tracing his money. You can't just have millions and millions of dollars flow through an organization, even hundreds of thousands of dollars flow through an organization, and nobody knows where it's going, because he does pay a lot of people. And I'm sure he pays a lot of people in cash. So I'm assuming that there are records. So I want to know from the CEO, from the accountants, from whoever disperses their checks, whoever does a direct deposit. Give me your records. How do you keep track of this money? How does he get paid? How does he accept
Wow.
his salary? There are ways to track it.
Well, that's why the testimony of Derek Ferguson, who's on the stand, the CFO, is so important, talking about how Combs gets a salary and disbursements and understanding the flow of money and credit cards and things of that nature, and mixing personal and company resources. This is a question I'll throw this to Candace. This question from B. Isn't the son's mom being in the court give them access to who's testifying and allowing them to release those videos like Mia's, and maybe bribe jurors too? I mean, this is assuming a lot and making quite the allegations, but I guess it goes to the point of, the defendant's family and friends could be in that courtroom seeing the testimony of a witness who's testifying under a pseudonym. Is there a security concern, to say the least?
Well, listen, if they follow the judge order, unlike the blogger did, then they should actually be fine. I mean, certainly they are out there, and I'm sure that they're speaking highly of their father, but so far they haven't done anything wrong. And if they do, the judge will go after them, and they certainly don't want that. They sit in court. One of them leans on his grandmother's head. It's actually very supportive for Sean Combs, and I really don't see that anything would be done like that was done as it was today with the blogger.
So I have two questions from Christina Lester. So Rich, the first one is, if he's found guilty, what is the turnaround time for sentencing? I think at the federal level, you're looking at 75 to 90 days from conviction to sentencing. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe someone can jump in. But also, let me ask you this. This is from Christina Lester. It was mentioned the other day that previous acts of violence can only be introduced if they fit an MO. Why do some acts of violence fit an MO but not others?
Well, that's a good question. So first of all, I think you're right about the timing. I think it's 2 or 3 months, I would have said. You said 75 to 90 days, but it's the same thing. The act of violence has to be similar to the act of violence in the case. For example, if he got in a fist fight with a classmate in elementary school, that is not anything like spousal or domestic abuse. It doesn't fit the same kind of thing. And it is not probative of his propensity to commit violent acts, and it is prejudicial to show something that is too far afield. So at the end of the day, that's a judgment call by the judge, although there's a lot of legal precedent on these kind of things that a judge can turn to for guidance, but it has to be sufficiently connected. We don't, as a general matter, prove criminal cases by propensity. We prove them by showing that they happened.
Afi, question from Blessing Eek. Why did the Intercontinental Hotel settle with Cassie for $10 million? Did she sue that? Did they pay her cover up the fact that they accepted a bribe to bury the video? I mean, it became a point in her questioning because she had, a $20 million settlement with Sean Combs. Then she's expecting to receive $10 million from the Intercontinental Hotel. Obviously, the defense would be amplifying that to say she has a financial incentive to go after Sean Combs and testify against him. But again, why did the Intercontinental Hotel settle with Cassie for $10 million as reported?
That came out of nowhere for me. I'm assuming it's because of Respondent Superior. Their employees and people that they entrusted did this illegal deal, and they have to take responsibility for that. That's the thing that immediately hit me.
Rich, litigator, question on that?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, we don't know all the facts. So it may be that there were other allegations about the hotel's failure to provide security, the hotel's failure to prevent this act of violence when it allegedly occurred, and certainly the hotel participating in the destruction of evidence for receipt of a bribe. She would have a civil claim against them one way or another. And I guarantee you the hotel wants no part of that litigation. They don't want to be in a lawsuit. They don't want to claim against it. They don't want a trial. They would pay some sum of money in a heartbeat to settle even the threat of that litigation, $10 million.
Candace, we
Jesse,
are getting...
can I jump in?
Sure, Afi. Oh, is it Afi or Candace? Candace, sure, Candace.
Yeah, I was just going to say very quickly that, when you go to a hotel, that they tell you in the paperwork that you sign that it's a safe, secure place. And I just don't think that that was met. That was a very big part of their fiduciary responsibility that was not met.
No, that's a good point. And let me just throw another question to you. We got this from Lily Gazarian. This is one we keep getting a lot of times. So Candace, tell me what you think about it. Hi, Jesse. If he's acquitted, can he sue all these witnesses for defamation since they testified against him?
So listen, whenever a witness takes the stand, they are protected, they have privilege, because or else how will you get a witness to say anything? Because some things that they're going to say, other people in the courtroom are going to perceive as not true or true based upon what they are perceiving at the time. If we were allowing people to sue each other for defamation inside of the courtroom, justice would never happen. So they are protected when they take the stand. Defamation as we know it outside in the public venue, it doesn't apply when we are talking about what's going on inside of the courtroom. And that allows witnesses, that allows everyone to put their theories out there and to put their recollections out there as best as they see without getting in trouble and without getting sued.
Got a question from Vanessa. Can you plead the fifth if you've been subpoenaed? Yes, obviously that's similar to what happened yesterday with Eddie Garcia, but it was offered protection. Okay, I've got a question here for you, Afi, from Midnight Gamer 92. Does Mia's identity being leaked mess anything up in court?
I think it's important to understand that it's really hard if you are saying that you're a victim to get on the stand, because you're going to be subject to a lot of scrutiny. And I think it's important that we focus on the fact that the prosecutors promised her protection. Her identity was supposed to remain anonymous. And I think that's a problem for future victims or people who allege that they are victims. And as we're looking at the screen right now, we're even seeing a picture, a depiction of her, blonde hair. She's a white woman. We know her size. We can easily investigate and find out who she is. I think it's going to be a problem for the prosecution for future people who say that they've been victims of crimes. And if we can also talk a little bit about Steele and the way he questioned her. Some people say that it was bullying. Some people say it's abuse. You could also argue that it's zealous advocacy. I don't think that's the way he treated her is such a big deterrent as it is the court's inability or the prosecution's inability to protect her identity.
It's a great point. It's a great point in terms of why there might be reluctance for people to cooperate, why there might be reluctance for people to sue. It's very easy, right? It's very easy to say you should have stepped forward, you should have stopped things, you should have gone to the police. But what you're seeing, I think, through the course of this case is it gets quite complicated. Aside from the traumatic effects and what the relationship between an abuser and a victim may be, there are so many complicating factors here. Again, I go back to this. I've said it before. I've said it again. I think one of the strongest pieces of evidence for the prosecution is the testimony of Dawn Richard when she testified that she witnessed Sean Combs punch Cassie in front of celebrities like Neo and Usher and Jimmy Iovine, and nobody did anything, right? I think the only testimony we had about somebody actually intervening was Deontay Nash and Mia, right? So when you think about that, and the jury thinks about that, Cassie's in this position where nobody's protecting her. Can she be in a position to fight back against Sean Combs? Can she be in a position, his word against hers? I think that's a really important consideration that I imagine prosecutors will highlight in a closing argument. Okay, Rich, question for you from Rel. Can they still call it bribery if the crime is past the statute of limitations? That's an interesting question. I want to expand upon it. So when you look at the indictment and you look at racketeering, and there's all of these underlying crimes, all these predicate crimes, they'll say like bribery or forced labor and how it's violations of specific codes, whether it's a federal code or more importantly, state statutes, right? State law. And you said it before, they might not charge him at the state level because of statute of limitations issues. We have statute of limitations for a reason. Is it fair to kind of prosecute him on charges that would have otherwise been time barred at the state level? I mean, they're trying to prove he was engaging in arson, for example.
The viewers of this network are so great,
right?
Because they're not only interested in this case and all the salaciousness, But they are digging into the legal issues. And I'm not going to pretend I actually know the answer to that question. That is a great question that I'm sure somebody involved in litigating this case has researched. I assume that the predicate acts do not have to be independently prosecutable, meaning they could be prior to the statute of limitations and still constitute valid predicate acts for RICO purchases. But I would get a lawyer to research that.
Well, I would also say that I don't think they're necessarily saying maybe he committed it, but there was an agreement to commit it, right? Racketeering conspiracy, an agreement to commit one or more, well, two or more of these predicate crimes. I think that may be the way. Afi, Candace, anybody want to jump in? If not, I got another question for you. Anybody want to jump in on that?
Yes, so from what I understand, that the law was created specifically for that reason, and that you could go back beyond the statute of limitations, for way beyond, in order to kind of connect the dots. And that's what makes RICO so different and important, because of the underlying crimes and the statute of limitations that you're not necessarily worried about.
Afi, listen to this. We have a poll up. So during this this lunchtime show, not only to take questions, not only we're going to report in real time the court updates, no updates, by the way, but we put up polls. Afi, listen to this. Were Diddy's actions after the hotel incident for protecting privacy / covering up a crime? Just protecting privacy, 13%. Covering up a crime, 87%. So that's what our viewers think. Viewers think that this isn't necessarily about him trying to protect him or protect Cassie. This was covering up a crime. Thoughts on that?
Well, and maybe, but I think all viewers are right. It can be for both reasons. And I use a perfect example when people say, oh, we don't see RICO, we don't see RICO. And if I can tie in this example, you have Bad Boy Enterprises, all of its businesses. It's a legitimate business, right? People think that this is just a legitimate business. You can have a legitimate business, but you can also use that business to do illegal things. So even if you have, what were the stats? You have like 86 versus 14%. Your business can be 86% legit. But if you're using it to do that 14% of illegality, then it's wrong. So you can have both things at the same time.
That's a good point. All right. We have an official update in court. Not very exciting. There's a back and forth between the judge, one of Sean Combs' defense attorneys, Jason Driscoll, and the prosecutor over whether or not an exhibit is hearsay. Hey, real quick, Candace, little Law 101. What's hearsay?
Hearsay is something that happens outside of what the actual person on the witness can actually say that he or she saw or was a part of. So it's hearsay. It's coming from somebody else.
Yeah, it's an out-of-court statement offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted. There's exceptions to it. Always a interesting back and forth.
Can I say something, Jesse? Like, that's ingrained in us in law school.
I know.
Like,
I
you
know.
said that. I'm like, there's certain crimes I know and certain rules of evidence that I know by heart. And it's like, oh my God, I'm triggered.
I know. It brings me back. By the way, I remember what a virus is from middle school. It's a tiny fragment of genetic material, either DNA or RNA, wrapped inside a capsule of protein. Why I remember that, I don't know, but I'm a weird guy. Okay, I got a question for you, Rich.
It better not be about viruses.
It's not. This is fair. This is a fair question. This is from Lily Gazarian. Jesse, why didn't they search his other homes like New York and New Jersey homes? I mean, they searched Miami. They searched L.A.
I don't know what they tried to search. I don't know what they were able to get search warrants for. You know, there's a limitation with what some judges will let you do. You need to show a good faith basis for going in there. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't know.
Okay, I'll give you another question in a minute. Afi, I'm going to throw you this question. This is from Christina Lester. Brian Steele is the most successful appellate attorney in Georgia. If convicted, what could Brian use to overturn the convictions?
Well, we're going to see if there are procedural issues. First of all, I know Brian from the YSL case and his wife. I think they're both fantastic. But if there are procedural errors, that's what we'll look for. If they're excusable errors, or if there's something that's significant that changed the course of the case, if there's a conviction, if there's any evidence that was undiscoverable at the time and that could not have been discovered, you can use that as a reason on appeal. So, if there's a a victim who's been disappeared, or if there's a critical witness that has been somehow disappeared and it's not on the fault or the cause of the defense, you might bring that up. But there are a few issues out there. And we see that, Brian is doing everything he can to lay everything out on the record, and that's the thing, you have to think of when you're trying a case. You always have to think of the appeal. So you always want to get everything laid out on the record.
Candace, got a question from Carol Mogan. Where is Jonathan Oddie? So for anybody who doesn't know, right, Jonathan Oddie is the guy from 2018 who allegedly shot up a Trump property. At the time he was questioned by authorities, he said out of nowhere in his interview that he was a sex slave for Cassie and Sean Combs. At the time, people were like, what on earth is he talking about? Investigators, they completely ignored it, said that he took a settlement. Well, what happens? All these years later, boom, he gets brought up at this trial. Cassandra Ventura testifies about Jonathan Oddie's involvement in these alleged freak-offs. And maybe he has involvement also in having some tape that he was going to release.